Clemson was a fine football team. Obviously, I wish those guys the best. Military Appreciation Day at Death Valley was something to see, 81,000 screaming fans. I know this week is a military appreciation for us, and anytime that you can give back to those guys that give so much, I mean, we don't do enough service for those people, and I'm looking forward to seeing them in the stands in the Carey Dome on Saturday. When it comes up to, I'm going to tell you guys right now about the injuries. Briz, Monil, Eric, Davon. I have not got notices back on all of them yet. Some of them are still going through medical things to clear or not clear them. Outside of that, I have no idea what's going to happen with, who's going to happen with all this stuff. So I've got to wait and see. So you can ask me 1,000 ways, and I'll refer back to the opening statements. So this is going to be fun, and let's get started.
Questions for Coach? Mark in the back.
Well, we'll start with Eric. So what can you tell us about his status for this weekend, and which are you encouraged by anything you saw from him?
You know, he was back outside at halftime. I saw him on the plane. He had an aisle seat. His legs were stretched out, sitting next to Colin Byrne. Everything seemed great. I haven't seen him since then, and he was doing testing in the Sunday meeting, so I haven't seen him since then.
Steven?
I wanted to follow up on a question I asked you after the game. I asked if Eric's previous history of concussions worried you, and you said that it hadn't based on the hit that he took. Did that mean at the time you didn't think it was a concussion? I just kind of wanted to give you an opportunity, or give me a chance to kind of clarify. What did you mean exactly by that?
Well, I don't need to clarify. I'm not sure what it is right now. We still haven't finished the test. I thought you meant that he got targeted on the play, and targeted normally means a helmet-to-helmet contact, which is why I was referring to that he only got hit with the shoulder pad, because he really got jerked, but it was only a shoulder pad. It wasn't helmet-to-helmet contact. Okay. That's what I meant by that.
Chris?
So this is a little off-base, so I apologize a little bit. But, so you're a coach. You have kids from all walks of life that you're coaching here.
I like this question.
Yeah. We have an election tomorrow that's been very divisive.
I like this question even more now.
How do you deal with that? So the old saying is you don't talk politics at the dinner table. How as a coach have you handled it with these guys? Because I can imagine issues could theoretically pop up.
Okay, we don't talk politics with the football team. When you're a public servant and you're representing another organization, Syracuse University, I don't talk politics. Okay. Now, all that being said, I'm going to get in trouble. I can still remember my middle school poli-sci teacher, okay? And she was trying to make sure that when we were growing up that we would all vote, all right? And got to get out and vote, got to get out and vote. She would ask, I was in a certain type of neighborhood, and they were like, does your mom and dad vote? Well, some of us raise our hands, some of them do, some of them don't. And I'll never forget her saying, she says, it's really important that you exercise your right to vote. And then she went a step further that I've never heard. And I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think how old I am. 7th grade, 8th grade, maybe 13 or 14 years old. She said, if you're not going to vote, this is what she said, this is a teacher. I want to say her name was Mrs. Reynolds, I want to say that. If you're not going to vote, just remember this. If you're not going to vote every single year for the president, at least vote every single year that there's a seat open on the Supreme Court, because that is the most important year ever to vote. That's my answer to that.
I imagine then you haven't had to address anything it hasn't caused any friction among your players.
We don't talk about it.
Okay. Fair enough.
Any questions? Steven?
When you look at Zach and Austin, kind of their skill sets, and maybe even more broadly, what the offense can do differently with each one of them, what are the pros and cons? What are you considering? If Eric can't play, why I might choose Zach or why I might choose Austin?
It's a great question. I think what we're going to do is we're going to have to see what happens during the week. We have an idea who does what better, but we have to see with the rest of the football team too, if Eric can't play, of how we're going to use those guys in that situation that's going to be the most conducive for us. Okay?
John?
And just getting a chance to watch the game film of Austin, what did you think of his performance, where he did well, where he didn't do well?
I think both of them did okay. You know, they both can do a lot better. They weren't perfect. You know what I mean? So there's room for improvement with both of them.
And you're planning like a 50-50 split of reps in practice?
I'm not sure yet. I got to see how the practice things go, and then I wouldn't say it anyway because that would be helping our opponent who's trying to break us down if Eric can't play.
Mark?
Coach, you know, for those of us who were here last year and saw Eric get hit hard a few times and get helped off the field, when you see him get hit like that, and you know what he's been through, you see him get helped off, what kind of feelings go through your head for him, for that day, and for his future?
You know, I really haven't. You got to understand, you guys actually saw him get hit last year. I really didn't. I've seen the, like a replay or something on one of you guys' highlight shows or something like that when we were starting in August. But I didn't watch that stuff from last year. I didn't see the shots that he took. So I'm really, you know what I mean? I thought it was a good hit. I thought it might have been helmet to helmet, but then when you watch the replay, it wasn't. It was shoulder pad to shoulder pad. So it was a good, clean hit.
In the back?
Coach, going over to NC State, they bring a really good rush defense. How do you plan to counteract that on offense?
You know, it's going to be tough. You watch how they played Florida State. You watch how they played Boston College, and they handled both of those football teams extremely well. Even Clemson, and trying to, you know, teams that are trying to run the football on them. Their front seven is extremely good. Their defensive ends can rush the passer. They got two linebackers inside the box that are a real deal from A to C gap. They're violent. They come down, they strike people, kind of like the guys we just saw at Clemson. It's going to be interesting. You would probably say that their weakness is maybe the back end, that you just don't want to run the football in there a whole lot because there's just not a lot of points against that defense in running the football. But we're going to have to see. Maybe we can get creative on how we're going to do it. I'm not sure.
Tad?
Coach, in playing NC State this weekend, what are the good things you see going in with your team and how you're going to play this?
I think the biggest thing is we're coming back to the Dome. It was amazing at Clemson. It was amazing in watching. You knew it was going to be loud, but it really wasn't loud all the time. And I'm going to answer your question right after this. Where there was a steady noise level, and you would think that you could communicate with one another, and then right when that quarterback started to get underneath the center, or right when you started to get the ball, the level, I wish there was a decibel meter thing, the level just shot up immensely. And the communications right at the very last part was extremely, extremely difficult. And I think that that helped them. But you could see that crowd was educated, like they had been doing that for years, since birth. And if we can get some of that going on in the Carrier Dome, where we make it extremely difficult for those other offenses to not only be able to communicate on third down, but on second and first down, right when they're about to snap the ball, I think that's going to be a huge advantage. 2 out of our last 3 games are at home. I mean, we couldn't ask for a better schedule to try to get to a bowl game that we haven't been to in a very long time. We got to take them one at a time, but to have an opportunity to do that and have an opportunity to do it in front of our home fans with Military Appreciation Night and with our relationship with Fort Drum, I think we wouldn't want to have it any other way. Great question.
All the way back, Matt?
Coach, I know obviously military appreciation is the entire season for you. We've been seeing you wear that ball cap on the sideline. Well, what does that mean to you? You know, not only recognize it this month, but you know, throughout the entire season.
You know, I grew up in military bases. I grew up in classrooms with kids whose dads were MIA and POW. I mean, it is a big, big part of me. I mean, my father's buried in the National Cemetery in Houston next to his brother. Okay, if I wasn't standing here as a football coach, I'd be in the military, officer in the military. It's a big thing with me. It's always been a part of our family. And, you know, anytime you get an opportunity to give back to the young men and the young women that served, we need to do that. And I think that you need to respect them and give them all the respect they deserve. Because unless you've been there, you have no idea of what they've sacrificed and what their families have sacrificed. So many times you think the servicemen's in the military, their families are in the military as well. Just like a coach. A coach's families are part of that coaching tree, and they're in that family. It affects the entire family. So it's a big deal with me. And you know, I don't want to go too much further than that, but I'll just let it go like that. It is a big deal, and hopefully we'll put on a good performance for them. Thank you.
Time for 2 more questions. Steven?
I want to ask you about one guy who did travel, one guy who didn't travel, Rex Culpepper. Why did you decide to bring him along for this trip? Is he kind of planning to redshirt? And then Jamal Custis, why was he not available? What are your thoughts on him maybe redshirting as well?
Custis is going to redshirt. And with Rex, anytime you get an opportunity to take a quarterback into a venue like that so that they can experience that, that's going to be big for his development down the road. That's what our thoughts on that.
Sure. What have you thought about Rex? And he's just a guy, we never get to see him. We never really get to ask about him too much. What have you thought about his development this year? Where has he come along?
I think physically he's developing quite well. You can see that his body's changing. Most of the time he's with the defense, so I don't get to see him with the scout team. He's down there scout teaming with the defense, and I don't get to see him as much as I get to see the other quarterbacks.
Final question, Mark?
Coach, your stance last week going into Clemson, at least in your press conference, was, I don't know if we have a chance. Obviously, it's going to be a different stance this week, and people, fans will think, if you're going to make it to a bowl, this is kind of a game that they're pointing to that they think you should win.
And fans know everything.
Well, what would you say your stance is this week on it?
I think my stance is this. I think all 3 of our last 3 games are winnable. Okay. The reason why I say that is because of who we're playing and where we're playing them at. Okay. We want to take those games one at a time, but obviously this is a key game. I think that a lot of people thought that Wake Forest was a key game. Obviously that didn't go our way, and we had no chance versus Virginia Tech, and it did go our way. So I think when you try to lock in what's a W and what's an L, I think that's not fair, especially when it comes to the game of football. Because as we all know, one team can run out there and 4 plays later, when a very special individual goes down, the whole team can change. So don't get locked in on that part. I think we've got 2 out of our next 3 games at home. Anytime you're playing at home, you have a huge advantage, and we've got to make sure that advantage is true by filling that place up and making it very difficult for the other teams to communicate from an offensive standpoint when we're playing here at home in Syracuse.